Okay. Thank you, Karen. Oh, yeah. Welcome, everybody, to the church. Beautiful time to get together on Temple Time. I wanted to church. We're so programmed to say church. Church is like a bunch of people, so I don't say it. Anyway, today we're talking about temple. So that's why I said, yay, it's Temple Time. It's nice to get together to worship God in prayer, in song, and in the Word of God. And so that's kind of why we come together as a community. And then church time is all, temple time is all week around. That's what he said to Vicky on the way here. I'm like, man, I've seen pastors here. I've seen pastors. We had a graduation here. And this is the church out of the week. There's a revolving door. There's people coming in for conversations. Graduations and rehab. I had a tear in my eye last night. I was having seen the movie. Are you on season 3? You're not on season 3. Oh, I just started season 3. What are you at? No, I'm not going to ruin it, but we're in the book of Matthew. So if I give anything away, it's not my fault. I'm sorry. But we were in season 3, and when we got speaking at about Matthew 10, there was like I always think the commission is at the very end. You're commissioned to go out, pray, deliver, spread the good news, spread the message. But in chapter 10, Jesus sent his disciples out and in 2 by 2s, and that was the commissioning. And it was really cool, and I had a tear in my eye because there's little James, and little James has some little problems. He's got some health problems, and he's very concerned that he's being sent out to heal people and deliver them from demons and speak about the wonders of the kingdom of God. And he's very handicapped. And he's like, why haven't you healed me? Why would you send me out like this? I'm supposed to heal people? And here I am? Like, it doesn't make it. And Jesus says, he laughs, and he says, God has trusted you so much that you can be in this shape and imagine the stories that are going to come out of your weakness. This little guy's healing people, and he's not even healed. And God's going to use you in a majestic way. And isn't that like so many of us in here? Some of us have handicaps that, like I've been to a couple rehab centers, and when you apply for insurance, they're like, that's on there. And then you guys don't do well. We're not going to insure you unless you have a down payment of $1 million. They didn't say that. I just got rejected and didn't pursue it further. But there's some of us that God uses the weaknesses that we have for him to be strong. And so it's a great honor that some of us have certain disabilities. I look at them as abilities. So anyway, I hope you cry at season 3, session 2. It's a great thing. We took the month of January off of Matthew. As a church, we go through books of the Bible. What did I say? Oh, let's take January off. Go for a vote. So we took December off of going through the books of the Bible. We're in Matthew. We have been for quite some time. We're kind of nearing the end of it. No one really knows when we'll be done. But it was a great time of getting out of Matthew and going into Advent. And the anticipation. Joanne did a great job of leading us into Christmas and the story and different people sharing on Advent. It was fantastic. And then January, we had more of a vision January. And then today we're getting back into Matthew. Does anybody remember where we are? Yeah, me neither. Okay. Matthew 24. Good eye, Bruce. We're in Matthew 24. And I was like, man, I feel like I'm out of shape. Like maybe you've gone to the gym or you played I played squash last week. I haven't played squash in a long time. Yes. Yes, you're looking at me going exactly how I feel right now. I'm still like, wow, I'm out of shape. And so I had to recap Matthew and go over it and get to where we are. But ultimately, where we are was Jesus' last addressed publicly. And there was, just going back a little bit, there was three challenges that Jesus gave out. The challenges are either God is everything or he's nothing. And then the religious people came at him with the yeah, but the test. And there was a law test, a theological test, and a political test. And the word is Jesus astonished them and muzzled them. And so when somebody gives you a really good answer back, I don't know if raising children, sometimes they astonish you with their wit, you're getting mad at them, and then they say something, you're like, I'm just gonna muzzle, just muzzle. I don't want to take this anything further. You've done really good, little one. Being smarter than a great 5 years. That's a good thing. They made a show of it. And then in the last address that he did publicly about God is everything or he's nothing was the word hypocrisy. I don't know if you can relate to that, but I think there's a little bit of it in all of our lives. But he really wanted to pull out the hypocrisy of our heart. He had a couple parables of a tree getting overgrown in the birds, and the birds are in another parable. The birds were taking the seeds off the ground, the truth of God. And so wherever there's a tree and wherever there was bread, there's yeast in it. And so wherever in my heart the enemy can come in and give me lies and I can start to believe them, and then I start to have this hypocrisy, and it's easy for me to wander away from God. And so the hypocrisy kind of started with they talked about taxes. They said, should we pay taxes to the government? Like, we're not a part of that. Should we really even be doing that? And Jesus said, just show me a coin. And so one of the religious leaders goes, oh, I got some coins. And the reality was that guy wasn't even supposed to have a coin because in Jewish law, they're not supposed to have an image with a graven image of something. So he wasn't even really supposed to have that coin as kind of a trick of like, you're already a hypocrite. You just pulled out the coin. And his friends were like, come on, you shouldn't. He tricked us. Um, and the whole principle goes behind, I think the principle is you got to practice what you preach. And so if you're saying something, then you got to kind of have the actions behind it. In the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, I've referred to that often enough, is that we come to this understanding that I'm beyond human aid, that only God can do for me what I can't do for myself. And they say that we have written a spiritual book, but it's moral as well, implementing that in the spiritual life, there's a moral standard, which all of us, in that life, we come to be under the guidance of God in. And so this hypocrisy, Neil did a really good job. He shared on styles of hypocrisy. And I was like, I probably don't have that many of these 7. And then he goes down them and he starts to explain, man, no, not me. So you did a good job, Neil. The styles of it was blocking others into the kingdom, setting up, being too strict, burdening others with all the rules, using the spiritual life as a buffet, like taking a little here and a little there, not seeker friendly, I think you put it. Wrong priorities, putting a little bit of God in my life as I go through my life. Outward appearances, who doesn't like the outward appearance, right? Drawing standards from likes and comments of others, and then shooting the messenger. Okay, I might have summed some of those up there, but shooting the messenger, people that are here to kind of, we're a community. And sometimes when people come up to me and go, "Oh, you said this," I'm like, no, that's not saying that, you should be like that. I have it all together, and I don't like to be corrected. And then there was the final lament. And lament means, what does lament mean? Cry. I'm looking at statement of sorrow. And basically, I think you summed it up as, God, thank you so much. Uh, so we come into, had about 2 or 3 days of teaching in this temple. And during this is important, I want to talk about the temple a little bit. We didn't come from that culture, but the temple was the center of the culture. The temple was the kind of the hustle and bustle where everything happened, the teaching, the schooling, all the plans and all the teachings and the recital of the scripture. The scripture was kept there for safety. And that's where people came to get right with God. They would do sacrifices there. This is actually where the presence of God was. The Ark of the Covenant was the centrality of the temple. That's where religion, theology, politics, and law. And so now we're getting into Matthew 24 and verse 1. So, Father, would you just give us eyes to see? There's a lot going on here, and would you just have your Spirit speak to our hearts and teach and guide our time? Jesus left the temple and was walking away when his disciples came and called his attention to its building. So they're looking on the outside again, like, look at the magnificent buildings. Aren't they great? We looked at the hypocrisy. Remember the Jewish people had these little boxes, and they were very religious, so they would remember God's law on their foreheads and on their arms. And then they had these tassels. And I kind of made the joke with some of us in this room, me and Josh, a few of them. I would see the box on their roof, and they're like, "I'm a holy man." And so by the end of the month, I'm wearing like a refrigerator box, and he's got the new washer and dryer boxes on him, and we look absolutely ridiculous because we're so holy. We're trying to up each other. And so, man, we have an easy time looking on the outside. It's kind of like a hidden. You see all these things he adds. Truly, I tell you, no one stone will be left on another. Everyone will be thrown down. Oh, there's going to be a throwdown. What he's saying is that there is no more need for the temple. I don't know if they understood it at the time, but they're trying to grasp the concept. It's a big deal. And when you start talking about this kind of stuff, maybe if you're in customs and you're talking to your friend about, tearing down buildings and stuff, you might get taken to the side and checked out a little bit. So Jesus is now interrupting and disrupting the culture and the religion that has been going on that is really about man trying to do and not be with God. And so you have a new way of doing things. I don't know if you remember, does anybody remember Blockbuster? Blockbuster was in your top. What, okay, so what color were the cars? Blue and yellow. And we would go on a Friday after dinner and we would sit there and look at that. And you're reading the back and it's like an hour or 2 hours. And then with the kids, with the popcorn, some of that Tostino queso. Remember that? It was so much fun. I think it was more fun than actually watching the 3 movies that we got. Um, but why didn't we go to Blockbuster on Friday? The system totally changed. So when did we look? I watched a movie on my phone that was cast to my TV. You can't do that at Blockbuster. So Netflix has disrupted the whole business model of Blockbuster. A beautiful one for artists. So artists, what were the music streaming platforms that we didn't use to steal music? Napster, yeah, Napster. Remember, to nab the music. It all makes sense. I didn't understand that before. So it's so hard for an artist to make and create and not get paid anymore. It was just like there was so much open internet and whatever, and somebody's taking a picture of you, filming, and all of a sudden your stuff's all over the place. It's being shared, and you're not getting paid for your art. And so they've come up with a program called Patreon. Has anybody heard of that? You can add Patreon to your art site, and you do all of your art, and you inspire people. And if you're a great artist, they want to give you donations. They give you money through that, and it's a whole way of disrupting the culture of creators. How about Uber? How many cabs does Uber own? Zero. Airbnb, they don't own a hotel. They're a hotel. You would think they're a hotel company. They're actually a protest. But this is what, and if you don't get anything out of today except for mediocre coffee and this, is that Jesus is coming to disrupt what you thought was and what is going to be. This is where we get into the temple. So, as Jesus was sitting on the mountain of Olives, the disciples came to him privately. Tell us, they said, when will this happen, and what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age? I want to know now. I was that kid. Me and my friend, we're not good with secrets. We just want to know everything right now. I told her, did I say that? I bought you a present for Christmas. Don't tell me anymore. And we're not good at not wanting to know. Um, but the reality is that the temple has failed. The light of the world where the presence of God was has now come into the den of thieves. Jesus talked about this vineyard, and the vineyard owner set it all up for renters to come in and start a business, but he still owned the vineyard, and they needed to pay their dues and their rent and all that stuff, and they didn't. And so the landlord sent a messenger. And then another message. And then the vineyard owner said, "I'm going to sell my son with a group. They're going to respect him." And they killed him. And so ultimately, the tenants at the vineyard got thrown out. And so this is the concept that we're moving into, is that now we know that I'm the best in the vineyard. And I'm God, you know, my body is the temple. Even outside of church, go to the gym. People say, only I could do what you're doing. But the temple is on the inside. And I think it's all connected, so at some level, we should be getting our outside temple a little bit in shape. And that's why I'm playing squat, guys. So I'm going to read through this. This is probably the most debated, talked about passage in Matthew. It's pretty maybe difficult. I'm just going to read it through and then I'm going to share some of my points. Jesus answered. Here's his answer to the question. Watch out that no one deceives you. Stop there. But I really stop. Those, there are always going to be people that are going to try to discount you and discredit you. They're going to try to change His word. You look at the Bible. It's been 2,000 years, and lots of people want to change certain things about it. You look at other literatures, like the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's 164 pages has never changed, and now people are starting to want to change it. And I think like once the message is there in the purity, there's going to be people that are against it, people that want to make subtle changes, distort it, deceive us. When you look at the Garden of Eden, the enemy's always going to come in too. We think once we get the garden and we're the property of God and we're doing everything good, we're spiritually fit, that we're immune. But even in the Garden of Eden, the serpent came in the form of fear and caused the heart to be emotion, caused leading us out. I want to be more like God. Who doesn't want to be like their dad? Little kids dress up like they want to fix stuff. I see your little guy and dad's he used to be an electrician and then he wants to be an electrician and it's like we have this, we want to be more like our dad and the deception was you're being withheld from it. And then yeah, but we'll die. And then it's like silly. God's not going to destroy you. He made you. You're made in His image. The last thing He's going to, and this is what's going to happen within all of our hearts, is we're not immune from the enemy of fear. Matthew 24, verse 5. For many will come in my name, claiming, I am the Messiah, and will deceive many. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All of these things are the beginning of birth pains. Then you will be handed over to be persecuted and put to death, and you will be hated by all nations because of me. At that time, many will turn away from the faith and will betray each other and hate each other. And many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. Because of the wickedness, the love of both will grow cold. But the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. So then, standing in the holy place, the abomination that causes desolation, spoke of, spoke of through the prophet Daniel. Let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judah flee the mountains. Let no one on a housetop go down and take anything out of the house. Let no one in the field go back and get their clothes. But dreadful it will be in those days for pregnant women and nursing mothers. Pray that your flight will not take place in winter or on the Sabbath. For then there will be a great distress, unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, and never will be equaled again. If those days had not been cut short, no one would survive, but for the sake of the elect. And here the elect, I believe that they're talking about the chosen ones, originally the Jewish people, but the children of God, which we are now all included in. Those days will be shortened. At the time, if anyone says to you, look, here is the Messiah, or look, he is there he is, do not believe it. False messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you ahead of time. So if anybody tells you he is out in the wilderness, do not go out. Or he is in the inner room, do not believe it. For as lightning that comes from the east is visible even in the west, so will the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever there is a carcass, there will be vultures that gather. Immediately after the distress of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. Then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then all the peoples of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with a loud trumpet, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its twigs get tender and its leaves come out, you know that summer is near. Even so, when you see all these things, you know that it is near, right at the door. Truly, I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until these things have happened. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. As some of you know, I'm usually tackling one or four verses. All right. So now we know the question. Now we know the answer, right? Yeah, that's what I said when I was reading it. And there was two questions really. There was okay, you're talking about this temple and the stones, and it's going to be destroyed. Um, when's that going to happen? And I believe that this section is talking about that. The next section is going to answer more of the last question: is when are you coming back, and what will be the signs of the end age? Josh is going to be speaking on that half next week. So there's so much in there and so much imagery and prophetic words and prophets connecting dots for this to happen. Um, and, and really what the prophecy is destruction of the second temple. I had to refresh my memory about the temple, so I'll give you a little bit of history. And the second is more about the end times and the rapture and the signs. And I think there's so many people on YouTube. You just look up end times, and there'll be a rabbit hole that you can get caught on for many days. But I believe that we were supposed to talk about the destruction of the temple. So where was the temple? Does anybody know what mount the temple was on? What is it? Uh, Moria. So this is the mountain where Abraham was commanded to take his son Isaac, to sacrifice his son Isaac, and then the sheep came, and God provided am I right? Somebody's Googling that right now, right? but God provided the sacrifice at the top of the hill. So we get instructed to obey. It's our job to obey, and then God provided the sacrifice. That's Genesis 22, if you want to look at it. The first temple was built to house the presence of God. So the children fleeing slavery, they had the Ark of the Covenant, which was where the glory of God was. And the first temple was to house the glory of God. So King David took over Jerusalem from the Canaanites, and the construction began in 1016 and continued under the king's son Solomon. And he had a massive temple. You can see that in 1 Kings 5 to 6. So it was designed specifically to represent the sanctuary of the Garden of Eden. They brought in the imagery of Eden, they brought in different decor, different types of wood, and all of that stuff. So then, the first temple gets destroyed in 586 by King Nebuchadnezzar, where the Ark of the Covenant has never been seen. And they write a movie about that. Has anybody seen the Ark of the Covenant? No. Has anybody looked for it? They put a whole movie. Indiana Jones. Did he find it? Did he find it? He did find it. What happened? We've never seen it, but I'm and so the temple, the gathering, the place where we got right with God, the teaching, the culture, all of that stuff was destroyed. And then it was rebuilt under the reign of Cyrus the Great, who was the king of Persia, who I believe he took over Babylon, or which the Jews extended Jerusalem, and were able to build the second temple. And so Jesus is talking about the temple again in this night as well. You know, what table was there, where the culture and everything was happening. But the temple was active. Does anybody know the date that the second temple was destroyed? 70 AD. Who destroyed it? Uh, 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 This was the second of the second temple in 70 AD was no longer active. 200 and 630 we got committed to that the third temple was that the green dot of light of the world. That's the temple that must be temple now where the Lord provides for us. Today, research would show that there's Islamic mosque on that site. The Islam say that it's the third most holy site in the what I got out of it, all those things, and all of this hiking the first I've experienced a little bit with hiking. Hiking is honestly, I've never been hit by it. And we were camping at one two parkland. And we had this camp with this camp in the end of we were at the pool. We were camping under these massive trees. And this tornado and it was lightning and thunder. We were just so scared. We were in our tent, we were on a rubber mattress, air mattress, and then we were like, feel the lightning in our joints. That's how close it was getting. And I'm like, Google. You got to Google what to do in lightning. Can we stay on a rubber air mattress and a tent under trees, or go to the car with the rubber tires? I'm like, don't touch your phone. Maybe that's what I tried. Like, it was scary. It was scary. Like, we didn't know what to do. Like, I could feel it in my bones. And I'm like, it's probably forever. But it felt like it wasn't. And this is the answer. Jesus is basically saying, you're going to know. You're going to know when I'm coming back. That's what he promised. He promised he was coming back. He's promising all of these things, the end of the world, all of this stuff is going to happen. go very fast. We got this fast for everything to take place. But this is what there's going to be signs, wonders, things that are going to happen for us to grow and looking at the point to live our life as this way on those lines and getting comfortable with that. What I did want to talk about is instead of that everybody knows that prayer, we said that today a couple times, but basically setting aside everything I think I know for everything that we take in mind. Our literature would cover talks about abandoning, not surrender, abandoning my old life, abandoning the old way of doing things, abandoning my blockbuster card, cutting it up, and abandoning the old way, abandoning the old way of revenue, of business, of all of that stuff. And abandon my prejudices of who I think God is and who I think God isn't, and my old beliefs. And I can recall I was at the Ottawa Mission in 2006 on the streets of Ottawa with no, I can't die and I can't live and I can't be sober and I can't not be sober, and I'm in this weird purgatory hell. And I keep waking up to it. And I finally passed the biggest test of my life, urine test. That's the biggest test we'll ever pass. And I got into their treatment center, and I'm on the fourth floor of the Ottawa Mission, and they said, "You want out of here, little man?" And I said, I do, I want out of here. Well, you're going to have to find God. And I'm like, why? What would that do? Like, I grew up in the church. I grew up at Sunday school. I was a missionary kid. My dad's a pastor. Like, I'm disconnected of like, how do I get out of here and God? And what they said was, well, don't worry about that. We're just going to lead you into a relationship with God, and this will solve all of your problems. Which, because of my prejudices, I didn't know God was going to power and propel me from the inside because I've never had that experience. And so I don't want to set my theology and my beliefs on the experiences that I've had to get in the way of my relationship with God. The whole deception thing. I think some of us are very cautious about that, and some of us will listen to everything. For me, what I've come to understand in Matthew 23, verse 8, because we can go on both sides of the fence of like hearing every message and being swayed and pulled in every direction, and then the lone wolf. Like, I don't think that. But I think we need to be somewhere in the middle. Jesus even says that you are not to be called rabbi. You have one teacher, and you are all brothers. You are not to call anybody father because you have one father, and he is in heaven. Nor are you to be called instructor because you have one instructor, the Messiah. And I believe we get to a point where, yes, we need the resources and people around us, whatever they may be, but ultimately it's me and God. And I have a right relationship with God so I can have a right relationship with the world around me. And I've had that experience of getting to this point in recovery, and we do it in LifeLab, we do it in the 12 steps, where we create this awful garden, a cesspool, the fears and the hurts and the shame, all of this stuff, and we take it to God because only He separated me from my drugs and my alcohol and the bad relationship, and only He can separate me from fear and resentment. And I bring that to Him and I say, I find this objectionable. Can you do something about it? I don't know what the good and the bad is. Speak it all. And we call that the 7-step prayer. And now I go from, and maybe you have a sponsor, but now I go from having a sponsor, being man-led, now being God-directed. And I think that's what happens inside of here is that God creates a residence inside of us. In Ephesians and Corinthians, it talks about that we are the temple of God. The presence of God actually comes in here. And I remember my mom, I think I was probably 12 years old, she's like, you want to pray the salvation prayer? And I'm like, I do. And so we prayed for Jesus to come in my heart. I was like, and nothing happened. And I just thought like, oh, okay, this is all right. I'm a Christian, or whatever it is that happened, but nothing really happened because I didn't feel anything. But the reality is that God is going to come into your heart, and you will feel it. You will have an experience like you might have had with alcohol or drugs or food, fill in the blank, and you're going to be God directed, and you're going to. I look at recovery as recovering the Garden of Eden, because at one time there that's what we need to do. Is really pray for the strength that I can let go of the old confines, the old structures, and to feel like a defenseless little kitty cat that you have no claws, don't feel like you sent into the world. You have a Father that came to reside inside of you, to give you power and strength and glory. Grant me the strength. Um, Memorize the temple. Is God setting up shop? Maybe God started to do the applied for grant. You applied for a whole project. You have to have a budget. You got to have like it was a long process. So, gosh, for me, and we have to have it all like the cross, the eyes, the thought, the seed, and that's we're waiting for the grant. And as God sets up the shop of your heart, the temple of your heart, where the culture, the theology comes out of, God's going to, what's the project that you have me under? Where am I going? What am I volunteering? Where am I going to be the salt and light to your people? And I was meditating, like, I want to fill out the grant because I have this project that I'm incapable of doing. And that's what God's going to do. He's going to take you to places. He's going to be like little James. And you're going to be broken and wounded. But God's giving you the authority out of the temple of your to heal, to restore, to lift, to cast out demons, to overcome addictions, to overcome relationships, to be able to raise your children in the name of Jesus. And so I think we go from doing temple activities to actually being the temple. And it's a beautiful place to be. And if you don't have that experience of having the living God in you, I'm telling you that it can happen because it happened to me. And so we go through a process of LifeLab and we look at the things that are blocking us. And I think it was somebody we were talking about the sunlight of the Spirit. And when we have these blinds down, I don't know if you've been to a crack house, but that's when I come in here, all the blinds are down, it's sunny outside, and I lift up the blinds, and now you can see. And so I hope you can have that experience because that's what LifeLab are 12 steps done in the right way. That's the experience that you will have. You'll be awakened. You'll see the sunlight. You'll feel it on your face. It'll be different. And you will be fueled by the Spirit of God's love. And our enemy is the serpent that comes in fear and puts us in motion to walk away from God. So cultivate the temple of your heart. Be the temple this week. Joanne's going to come and lead us